Are we drinking pharmaceutical grade or industrial grade?
Industrial grade. We're drinking industrial grade fluoride chemicals. Yeah.
Dentists unaware of issues.
Dentists are unaware of issues. They're very busy running their practice, heads down, tail up, keeping the dollars ticking over. Areas like this, fluoridated areas as well, very, very, very busy, just doing everyday dentistry. So they're not looking around them, they're not really interested in these kind of issues. They just want to do their job. And
Topical versus systemic fluoride.
yeah, we are definitely trained in dental school that fluoride has a topical effect. People that claim that there's also a systemic effect is actually thought to be by the fluoride ions bathing the teeth as the water goes into the mouth. So it doesn't make sense to me at all that we should put it in the water supply. Gargle with it if you want, use your fluoridated toothpaste if you want, have your dental applications. I'd rather that we didn't force this on children, especially. If you're an adult and you can make that decision, fine. Do it all you want, but definitely don't give children fluoridated toothpaste.
According to Doug Cross, a fluoride researcher from the UK, in a paper he wrote on November 24 this year that was highly critical of the data analysis techniques of the American CDC, quote, "This latest study unwittingly provides startling evidence of just how far down the road to universal fluoride poisoning America has travelled. But similar evidence is emerging from all other countries where this discredited practice is still imposed on a generally hostile and non-consenting public. This is now clear evidence that excess exposure to environmental fluoride in all its forms has reached epidemic and indeed pandemic proportions. Immediate action is needed to reverse the rapidly increasing risks of fluoride poisoning to the general public. Dental fluorosis is the only reliable visible sign that a person has been overexposed to fluoride in childhood, but that does not mean that those who do not have dental fluorosis do not also have fluoride overload. Once individuals grow beyond the critical childhood period when their new teeth are developing, there is simply no mechanism whereby the condition can be easily observed." Unquote. Dr. Alexander, what would you say in response to this statement? And please tell us more about dental fluorosis as being more than just a mere cosmetic effect and what it means for the rest of the body.
I know this particular report that you're discussing, they came up with one of the conclusions was that only less than a quarter of a population, is it between 6 and 49 years of age, only less than a quarter had dental fluorosis. Yes, so this is, you've got to look at how they collected that information, the different age groups that were looked at. What teeth were they collecting that information from? So we're looking at 6-year-olds. A lot of 6-year-olds don't have their adult incisor teeth through at all. And then we're looking at 49-year-olds. Were they looking at wisdom teeth or were they just looking at incisor teeth? Because I've taken out wisdom teeth with dental fluorosis. There's molars that you can see dental fluorosis on which wouldn't normally be looked at. So I think for a start this is a very vague kind of a study that's been done, but even though they found that a quarter of the population actually had some form of dental fluorosis is just, it should be mind-blowing to the average person. I believe that those figures should be much higher than that. And perhaps that's to do with data collection and the way they grouped their subjects. But even 25% isn't that too much? And yes, knowing that that's the sign, that's the visible marker that they've already had too much. What about the ones whose teeth weren't developing at the time they were exposed to too much fluoride? How do we find out whether they're toxic or not? I know, again, with the tetracycline staining, bones can be biopsied and you can see the tetracycline as a staining as a marker as to even when in the development of the child they're exposed to that. Pretty horrible if we have to start going around getting pieces of bone from children to make it clear that their bones have also been damaged by fluoride. We shouldn't have to do that, but it's logical that they have been.
So it's definitely showing that it's more than just a cosmetic effect.
Of course it is. And again, I feel so sorry for children and for families where there is already dental fluorosis in the region and then they're forced to drink more fluoride on top of that.
In regard to overexposure of fluoride, Dr. Alexander, could you please tell the viewing public a little about sulfuryl fluoride as being one of the extra sources of fluoride?
Sulfuryl fluoride is a fumigant that's being now used. It's being allowed for use in Australia, and it's already been used in other parts of the world, but to spray dried foods, fruit, flour and nuts, anything that has to be stored must be sprayed with sulfuryl fluoride. So what it means is you think you're eating healthy stuff and you're just getting more fluoride. But yeah, and I suppose a lot of people don't realise that pesticides have fluoride in them, and fluoride is a pesticide and a rodenticide, and so it's also about keeping the weevils out, and it kills things.
So we're building and accumulating all different levels of fluoride.
It accumulates in a body, and it accumulates in our environment, and it's really, really hard. Like it's really hard to get fluoride out of the water, it's really hard to get it out of your body. Really difficult.
We interviewed former Australian Dental Association South Australian Branch President Dr. Andrew Harms for this documentary recently in Adelaide. In a similar vein to that of Doug Cross, Dr. Harms discussed how decay rate data is regularly fiddled with to ensure Australian and other pro-fluoridation authorities get the results they desire. He also asserted that without proper peer review, no such results can be taken seriously in a scientific-ish sense. Dr. Harms specifically discussed fluoride's relationship to delayed tooth eruption and the general lack of data correction for this effect. Dr. Alexander, would you care to discuss more about fluoride's effect on delaying tooth eruption and what this means for decay rate figures?
The fact that children's adult teeth are erupting later due to fluoride, due to overconsumption of fluoride or just any consumption of fluoride, means that when the researchers actually examine children's teeth to collect the data, many of these children they may not have their front teeth through, and these are the main teeth that they're looking at to collect the data. So therefore they're ticked off on the list as not having dental fluorosis.
This is in fluoridated areas?
In fluoridated areas, yeah. So basically, I don't believe that there's been much data collected in non-fluoridated areas. Where they've been looking at dental fluorosis, it's primarily been fluoridated areas. But if you don't have the teeth there, then you can't say whether or not they've been dental fluorosed or affected by dental fluorosis. So that doesn't make sense, and these children shouldn't be included in the study for a start. So eventually these teeth might come through, but the children have already left the study, and they may have dental fluorosis, but they were still marked as not having it. So that's how the figures get misinterpreted, purposefully. I'm sure they're purposefully misinterpreted because they've come up with a theory, looking for the answer, looking for a way to show that their facts match their theory, and that's how it happens. I do believe that I've seen a lot of children where their baby teeth even aren't shedding naturally. Their jaws are very underdeveloped, and their adult teeth are coming through behind these teeth. They have to have their baby teeth removed, manually by the dentist. They don't just shed naturally. I believe that's another effect of dental fluorosis, fluoridated water, and it stops the natural development of the jaws and leads to underdeveloped mouths. Again, mouth-breathing children. It's all connected. I know that's not part of that study.
How much dental fluorosis have you seen in your practicing years?
I put it up around the 45% of, and we're not just talking about children. We're talking about people, probably 20 to 40-year-olds as well that have dental fluorosis. They've been around long enough to have been exposed to it in those early crucial years. And even, I keep coming back to this area, we had an interview with the local television station. The interviewer, the cameraman and the cameraman's assistant, who were talking about fluoride, all had dental fluorosis, and they ranged in age from, say, 17 to about 45. So you could, if we could stop people and go, dental fluorosis, no, not dental fluorosis here. So we 45%, could be 50%, but I've definitely seen a lot. I've spoken to other dentists even more recently and said, are you seeing a lot of dental fluorosis in your practice? Oh yes, yeah, we see a fair bit of that, but that's a sign that they're not going to have tooth decay. And I said, so everyone who's had dental fluorosis doesn't have tooth decay? Is that the case? Absolutely not. Yeah.
According to Dr. John Caree, Chief Health Officer of Victoria, quote, the only possible adverse effect of fluoride might be mild dental fluorosis, and for which we've put out, very good guidelines on how to avoid that. The benefits, on the other hand, are absolutely indisputable, unquote. Dr. Alexander, do you agree?
Absolutely not. Mild fluorosis, would he like that on his children's teeth? Would he like that on his teeth for a start? Just even for the cosmetic issue there, but definitely that's a sign, and I totally agree with Dr. Sushila's findings, that there is definitely at least subclinical thyroid disease, if not full-blown thyroid disease, in every single child and adult that has dental fluorosis. We just need someone to pull their finger out and do the studies properly, and lobby the NHMRC for money to do these studies properly.
What would you say to Premier Anna Bligh, who has fluoridated forcibly the water of Queenslanders?
She's declared war on Queenslanders. She truly has. It's the wrong thing to do, and she will pay for that. And if John Paul Langbroek gets elected, same thing will happen to him. He will be disposed of. People are very angry and very annoyed at the fact that they have to drink fluoridated water. Only 5% of Queensland was fluoridated for so long. Funnily enough, it was Townsville, and I know people who practice in Townsville. They have tooth decay in Townsville. Funnily enough, they have a lot of tooth decay. So no, Queensland was the smart state for quite a while. Now it's the join the club, dumbed down state. Crazy. Not good for tourism either, by the way. I believe that every dentist should record every single case of dental fluorosis that they see and report it as a drug reaction. I believe that every dentist should record every single case of dental fluorosis that they see and report it as a drug reaction. I believe that every dentist should record every single case of dental fluorosis that they see and report it as a drug reaction. I believe that every dentist should record every single case of dental fluorosis that they see and report it as a drug reaction. I believe that every dentist should record every single case of dental fluorosis that they see and report it as a drug reaction. I believe that every dentist should record every single case of dental fluorosis that they see and report it as a drug reaction. I believe that every dentist should record every single case of dental fluorosis that they see and report it as a drug reaction. I believe that every dentist should record every single case of dental fluorosis that they see and report it as a drug reaction. I believe that every dentist should record every single case of dental fluorosis that they see and report it as a drug reaction. I believe that every dentist should record every single case I believe that every dentist should record every single case of dental fluorosis that they see and report it as a drug reaction.